Engage quantum drive.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining Rob and I for another episode of Quantum Drive. Just a quick thing right before we jump in. We had some tech issues, so the video did not record like it normally does, but we still have video, and it just will look a little different this week. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy. We hope you enjoy this episode.
What is your big takeaway from this episode?
Let's see. I don't have as much to say about this episode as I normally do, but I really love the special effects. I know I say that every time, but that nebula was so pretty. I loved it so much. So just kudos on that. It's just a pretty show to look at. And they like sneak in. There was a shot, I forgot, on the bridge when Ed Kelly and Tala were leaving and Bortus goes to sit in the captain's chair. And you can see in I like to call it the sunroof of the bridge.
Yeah.
They had a moon, what looked like, and then there was a planet, and it was just a really pretty shot that was kind of not needed, but I loved it because you get to see pretty space things, and so I appreciate those details. I really love the Isaac and Charlie storyline. I know it's more of a B plot for this episode, but it kind of felt like maybe they're both A plots.
They felt very balanced.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed that they got to have some one-on-one time and that Isaac got to say his piece, and I feel like Charlie got to say her piece a little bit too. Mm-hmm. And it was funny at times. The writing was really good. I enjoyed the back and forth between them, the bar scene, the realtor. It was light, but it was just very I don't know. It just felt organic, and I liked how that all flowed. So I very much enjoyed Isaac and Charlie's story this episode. I feel conflicted about the Laura and Gordon thing, just because I know I talked, if you're curious and haven't listened to the Lasting Impressions episode, I even feel like I need to go re-listen to it because I don't remember everything that I've said, but I had a lot of thoughts about that episode. And I don't think my problem is necessarily with Gordon and Laura. I think when Laura had her whole kind of hey, I get it. We were meant to be transcended centuries kind of love. So her accepting that and saying, I get it, I think helped me a lot with kind of resolving some issues I had with it. Because I don't inherently think Gordon's a creep. I don't think Gordon is coming from a creepy place. But as a woman who does content on the internet, I've experienced a lot of things, and it makes me nervous when someone, it's parasocial is how the best way to feel about he found a cell phone, he made a simulation and erased her boyfriend from the simulation.
Well, that was where things got really weird, and even within the episode was telling us that things were getting very weird.
Yeah, and then Gordon in the future goes and searches her out. He knew where she would be, and already knew so much about her because he essentially went through her phone and then was able to interact with her and win her over because he had all this information already. So
which could be seen as manipulative, but again, that's where intentionality comes in. And
I want to make it clear, I don't think Gordon has impure intentions. I think it's supposed to be a very sweet type of thing. I think it gets muddied for me just because of my experiences doing what I do. And then also just in the context of the show, it's very romantic. Mm-hmm. In the context, when you apply this filter to real life, it is horrifying.
Totally understandable.
So I think when I was watching this, I was it's creepy because I've experienced really uncomfortable things based upon me just existing on the internet. And it makes me fearful for other people who might have those experiences. And I think it just brings that up for me versus me having an issue with the storyline, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I think I'm hyper aware of those things. And so I notice things that technically might be a red flag that you should watch out for. Because Mark and I were talking about it. It's just kind of can you imagine Mark finds my phone in the future and uploads everything from my phone and then hangs out in the simulation and then tries to date me after. It gets a little weird. But it's it's what it is, I guess. So I don't know. When you look at it from very black and white terms, I think it does seem kind of creepy.
Sure.
But the whole thing with Laura finally kind of having that conversation with Gordon, learning about things. Don't you ever kind of feel like though Gordon was kind of lying to her for a really long time?
No.
Like he
I
wasn't,
don't.
but he was a future spaceman, and
Yeah, he couldn't tell her. Like, what is he going to do?
what about all the stuff like, hey, I had your cell phone and I looked, like I mean, like if would you want a partner who had access to all like this your cell phone and like made a simulation about your life and then like not tell you after the fact?
I personally don't care.
Okay, then you and I are very different in that way. But yeah, I guess it's one of those things where I view it from a different lens because of my personal
Hmm.
experiences. And it makes it a little harder to view it as like a sweet romantic thing when there's been a lot of other things that kind of happen that can make it not so sweet and romantic in real life.
Hmm.
But I did love the humor in this episode. It felt a little lighter than past episodes so far this season, I thought. I was really glad Gordon was so understanding at the end, but I still feel like he probably should have been a little. I felt he should have been more upset about it, but I guess he was in a different headspace coming from a month versus 10 years. So it kind of
Yeah.
makes sense. And you can go like, okay, like he understands the duty at this point. He hasn't had that life yet. But yeah, overall, I mean, I enjoyed the episode and I have a feeling things might show up again in the future. And I do feel like there probably will be some repercussions or some follow up about what happened in this episode.
I am
I
interested to see how their approach to time travel changes based on the way this episode played out.
Yeah, they're gonna write a report or something. Like Union is gonna be a little upset, I think, about this. Though it was an accident. It wasn't
It
like they were
was,
just
yeah.
messing around with it. They were in a battle with a Kalon.
And they did
So
everything they could to fix it. So,
yeah, and everything. I mean, in the end, everything kind of worked out okay,
hmm.
except for the heartbreaking bit about Gordon not having his happy ending. So, but those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this episode, Rob?
To probably no one's surprise, this is my new favorite episode of season
What?
three.
Wait, so
Of
it's
season
it's
three.
season 3. So
I
it's
still, Lasting
lasting.
Impressions is still my favorite episode,
Okay.
but this is my new favorite one of this season. But it's for multiple reasons. It's not just that it's a follow up to Lasting Impressions. That's obviously a factor. I
Hmm.
never thought we would get a follow up to it. It didn't seem like an episode that they would go back to. So I was super surprised to see them go back to it, but I was very happy to get that. Also, I just love a well done time travel episode. And I think
Yeah.
this was definitely well done. Like it gave us a lot of things to think about. Their time travel logic was pretty solid. I'm sure somebody can poke holes in something, but that's part of what just kind of accepting what they're doing with time travel is going to do. There's always going to be some issues here and there. And just like accepting those issues and moving on is what's going to make these episodes work better. So I don't linger on those too much. We did end up learning more about Charlie here, which is always good to get that additional character detail. And while I can't say that her and Isaac made progress, like a little tiny little bit maybe, but not a ton, I did really love all of their scenes together. I think they're great on screen together. Mark Jackson got a lot of fun stuff to do in this episode, and he was great the entire time. Between them and some of the stuff from Jay Lee, like those scenes earlier that we talked about,
Hmm.
I probably got more laugh out loud moments from this episode than any others this season. And that's not to say that the other episodes should have had more laughs. And it's also not to say that this episode forced more comedy because I don't think it did. We've talked about that evolution of the comedy and how it's just becoming more organic. And nothing here felt like a bit for bit's sake. It all felt very organic and it was all very funny.
Hmm.
And I like the tone of this episode a lot. I'm not sure if I can definitively say that I have a favorite character on the Orville.
Mm-hmm.
But Gordon's a top contender for me, and he kind of always has been. And I think this is one of Scott Grimes' best performances of the show.
Mm-hmm.
He does some great stuff here. Lastly, I had one kind of concerning question. I know I said I don't poke a lot of holes in time travel and their logic behind it,
Uh-huh.
but I think they accidentally created another paradox.
Uh-oh.
So Gordon sent the hail 6 months after arriving in 2015.
Oh,
The Orville goes back to pick him up 1 month after he's been in 2015. So they picked him up before he ever sent the message, and that is a paradox. Because how would they have known to go pick him up if he never sent the message, but they never sent the message because they picked him up too early, and oh no.
it's in flux, Rob.
Sure.
That's a good question, but it's also how did the Kalon know about the Aronoff device?
That
the
I
ripples.
feel like is something we're going to learn about in the
Yeah.
future, but
There's ripples. I mean, time travel in general, it's just something you shouldn't mess with. And
yeah.
oh God, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Like, I'm not a time travel expert.
I almost wish that they fixed one of those two things. Like he either sent the hail 1 month after being there, or they picked him up 6 months after he was there. If they had just tweaked one of those two, it all lines up perfectly.
I think that it was kind of on purpose though, because specifically John says it's not the right time.
Right.
We're here a month. So I feel like maybe they aimed for that and it's just what it was, because it's like, and maybe because John said that, something will come of that.
Maybe there are unforeseen ramifications. Yeah.
Oh, the ripples.
The ripples.
The ripples through time.
Okay. Before we get out of here, we have one more thing to do because Katie's husband, Mark, is also a big fan of the Orville and always leaves us with his 1-sentence review.
Dude, if I could just synthesize an egg salad sandwich whenever and wherever I want, I wouldn't.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. This is just a segment of the full podcast that Rob and I do. So if you want to hear more of our thoughts and full episode discussions, go to thegeekgeneration.com/quantum drive.